A Republican representative went on Fox News to talk about Trump and Russia. I don't know if you heard of it. It's kind of a big story that keeps popping its head up over, the course of his first term. And this congressman's response is just exactly the problem with this issue. It's exactly what I would expect to happen in Washington, D.C. And this is why both parties suck so bad. Watch this and then we'll discuss.
From what I hear, and I hear it pretty good, the intelligence people many of them didn't believe it happened at all. I think it's a hoax. I think it's a hoax by the newspapers and the Democrats.
President Trump calling the New York Times report that Russia offered bounties to Taliban fighters to kill American soldiers a hoax. This coming as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says that Russians engaged in Afghanistan is, quote, nothing new. Joining me now is to discuss all this, Pennsylvania Representative Guy Reschenthaler. He serves on a House subcommittee on international terrorism, and we are pleased to have him. Congressman, good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
David, thanks for having me on, David.
Let's be specific about what I think the president is referring to as a hoax. It's not necessarily the story of Russia involvement in Afghanistan with the Taliban. It's that he was briefed. This is what the original story said, that he was briefed about the story and refused to do anything about it. I think that's what he's referring to as the hoax of the story. Do you agree?
I believe he's referring to that and the fact that this was written on, or from what we're being told, this was written on his briefing, but he was being verbally briefed, and the briefer never articulated that talking point. So the president actually did not receive that information. So I think that's what the president is talking about. But
in fact, by the way,
yes.
Forgive me for interrupting, but a CIA officer who's not named for obvious reasons confirmed that the president was not briefed because there wasn't enough validating information for that particular briefing, correct?
Yes, what I was going to say, the information before it gets to the president has got to be vetted, corroborated, and only the evidence that is, or only the material that has evidence before it and those facts get to the president. And again, you can't fault him for the fact that the CIA briefer did not actually brief him on this. But you know what, David, you know who did have actual actionable intelligence on Russia and other actors? That's Biden and Obama, because under the Obama administration, they actually had intel, because it happened that Russia was going to annex part of Ukraine, Crimea, and Obama and Biden did nothing. President Trump, though, sent the Ukrainians Javelin missiles, lethal aid. So that's the difference. And Biden and Obama also knew that there were threats on Benghazi. They sat back and did nothing. They knew that ISIS was running roughshod over Iraq and Syria. They did nothing. Compare that with President Trump, who's taken strong actions. And when we had the chance to take out Soleimani, somebody who has killed American soldiers or orchestrated the death of over 600 Americans, President Trump took out Soleimani. And President Trump took out al-Baghdadi with ISIS. So President Trump's record is incredible on these issues. Right. So if Biden wants to pick this fight and have an argument over who's tougher on national security and national defense, we'll take that any day, because President Trump will win that argument any day.
He's bragging that Trump is a hawkish neocon. He's bragging that Trump is tough on national security. See, this is the problem. With Russiagate, you had the Democrats screaming to Trump, hey man, what are you going to do? You're just going to sit back? You're just going to sit back and let Putin run roughshod over you? Is that what you're going to do? I think maybe you should stand up to him. I think maybe you should do something. I think maybe you should fight back. What, are you weak? Are you weak? Is that what it is? You don't want to fight back. You don't want to fight back. Why don't you want to fight back? Is it because he's controlling you? Is that why? So the incentive is Trump to escalate, Trump to be more aggressive and bellicose and hawkish. And I don't want that. I actually believe in peace. I never want to use our military unless it's for self-defense against imminent threat of attack. But the Democrats are begging Trump, who they know is a thin-skinned buffoon idiot, they're begging him to escalate more with a nuclear-armed country because they don't care. They would rather resist from the right than resist from the left, which means they are trying to claim the mantle of neoconservative beliefs and of a hawkish approach to foreign policy. That's what I hate about this. Now, they opened up a lane for Republicans, if they wanted to come out and say, whoa, 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 whoa. No, you guys are wrong. Being hawkish is a bad idea, especially with a nuclear-armed country. We want to go the opposite direction. We want peace. We want, maybe economic trade so that we can improve our relationship. We want to, we have a more stable world if there isn't an escalating threat between nuclear armed powers. So let's go in that direction. Instead of doing that, what does this Republican representative do? He goes, no, actually, Democrats, you're more weak on foreign policy and Trump is strong and I want Trump to be stronger too. And so Trump sent lethal aid to Ukraine. By the way, bringing it up as if that's obviously a good thing, and because Obama didn't do that, which, by the way, I think Obama was right on. And then Trump did send lethal aid to Ukraine. And just so everybody understands, a lot of the rebels fighting in Ukraine have links to neo-Nazis. Like they are some literal neo-Nazi groups. This is who we're arming. In the same way that we always arm Al-Qaeda to topple dictators we don't like. This is exactly what happened here. We're arming neo-Nazis because we don't like Putin. So Trump did that. This guy's bragging about it. Not this guy. Obviously, he's not over my shoulder. But that Republican representative you just saw is bragging about it. Isn't that incredible? Bragging about an objectively terrible thing, about arming people who we don't even know who the hell they are. We don't know enough about them, sending them arms so they can stand up against Russia. Then he brags about Trump murdering the Iranian general in contravention of international law and almost sparking literal World War III. He's bragging about that. See, this is the problem. Now you have Democrats and Republicans rushing to be more hawkish, not just on Russia, but on all foreign policy. That's viewed as the duh position. That's viewed as the reasonable position. That's viewed as the position that everybody agrees to. Everybody agrees we got to be hawkish. Now the question is, who's going to be more hawkish? Because that's better the more hawkish you are. This is the framework. This is the mindset. It's so deranged, man. I guarantee you, there's no single mothers, in the middle of Cleveland going, I really wish we'd do more war. Nobody's doing that, but that's what these guys want. And then finally, they are trying to cover for Trump. Trump said, I think it's fake news, talking about this Russia story. They go out there and say, no, Trump doesn't mean that it's fake news that there were Russian bounties on our soldiers. He means it's fake news because they didn't tell him that in the briefings. And so that's the fake news part of it, is that they didn't give him the proper information. That's what they're claiming. But no, I actually think when Trump says it's fake news, he's referring to Russian bounties on our soldiers being fake news. And I think he's right about it. These are the same intelligence agencies and intelligence officials who've lied to us over and over. They lied to us about the Iraq War, told us Saddam was working with Al-Qaeda. That was nonsense. Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. That was also nonsense. These guys are notorious liars. So when he says it's fake news, I think he means the Russian bounties are fake news. They didn't actually happen. The Taliban doesn't need any extra incentive to fight us. They've been fighting us for 19 goddamn years because we're in their country. So they don't need any extra incentive. So he says it's fake news. I think he's right about that. But the Republicans know in Washington, D.C., it's politically incorrect to tell the truth on that. So what do? No. He's not saying that the Russian bounties are fake news. He's saying that it's fake news that because they didn't tell him about it when they should have told him about it. So they can't even question the assumptions. They have to mindlessly agree that, well, obviously there are Russian bounties on our soldiers, which is nothing but the intelligence community's attempt to keep us in Afghanistan longer. They portray Trump as weak, which means he says we got to stay in Afghanistan longer. And also it keeps us on that permanent war footing with Putin and Russia. And as long as we're in that permanent war footing, they get endless funding in the intelligence community. So Cold War all over again, and everybody's rushing to be more hawkish, and I hate it.